This is the Cubs Postcast, your instant game reaction for the Chicago Cubs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Cubs Postcast here on the Locked On Cubs YouTube channel. The Cubs lose 9-3. It was a disaster for the Cubs in this game. There's really no other way to spin it. To have 9 runs put up on you and your starter Matthew Boyd to not get out of the first inning, it's pretty much as bad as it can get, honestly, in this game. Pretty much everything that could go wrong goes wrong for the first 2 guys that end up on the mound. The bullpen was good after that. We'll discuss the small positives at the back end of the show here, but we'll talk about Craig Counsell's decision, the error by Nico Hoerner, what we saw from the lineup in this game and so far in the postseason. We'll get through all of that. You guys are welcome here into the chat on YouTube as well. Thank you to everyone listening who already caught Matt and Sam's show and who are watching now or listening now. Appreciate all of you. So we'll just start with a very simple thing of today of, well, what you're going to be talking about after this game.
This is what you'll be talking about.
The conversation around the Cubs right now is simple. It's why was Matthew Boyd the starter in this game? And Craig Counsell, when he met with the media after the game, said he trusted Matthew Boyd in this moment, that he was fully confident with the decision to put Boyd on the mound on 3 days rest, on a day in which he, his previous start throws less than 60 pitches. He gets hot before game 3 is over, just in case he's needed there in the 9th inning. But then he comes out today on 3 days rest and he's the starter. And it's not second guessing, I think, to talk about this. I think it's first guessing. Is a guy that's been showing cracks in the nicest way possible to put it in the second half of the season of his performances. Like, what are you seeing from Matthew Boyd out there that gives you the confidence to start him on 3 days rest? He's slowing down. This is a guy who hasn't pitched a ton over the last couple of years. They were careful with him throughout the season about his pitch count, about his innings, all of it. And then this is the decision that Craig Counsell makes. And I think it was, and it's not just, this isn't just a result thing. I think it was the wrong decision. I said going after the last postcast show that I thought this was the decision that was going to be made. But that's because I think I have a feel of what Craig Counsell is going to do. Now, for Monday's game, I got no idea what the plan is going to be. But I look at this game and I was like, I'm not surprised that Boyd is out there. I'm not surprised to hear after the game that Craig Counsell said he trusted him. But it was the wrong decision to be made. It was the wrong decision to have Craig Counsell start Matthew Boyd tonight. There's no other way to put it. It was the wrong move for a million different reasons. He's slowing down. Milwaukee's hit him well this year. And I think the most damning part of it was just the fact that everything was easy. Everything was over the middle of the plate. The umpire was, calling some stuff on the outside kind of inconsistently throughout the game, but this isn't like an umpire thing. This is just the fact that the Milwaukee Brewers straight up crushed him. They dominated Matthew Boyd. They were the better team today in this one, and while you shut them down for a majority of the game, this game got out of hand so quick. It was the wrong decision to start Matthew Boyd. I don't think there's any doubt about that in my mind. They should have started Colin Ray, who, unlike Boyd, has been really good recently. And it's also not about who's been good versus who's been bad. It's been about the rest. Typically in the playoffs, when we see managers go to a pitcher on a short rest, you're talking about guys like Justin Verlander, Garrett Cole, Max Scherzer, Clayton Kershaw, not Matthew Boyd. And I still like Matthew Boyd. I think part of it is just it is fatigue for him at this point in the season. But again, fatigue equals 3 days plus 3 days rest equals bad idea. And I think that's what the Cubs did today. So this, to me, this loss does fall on Craig Counsell. Now, we did see obviously an uncharacteristic, and this is where you can play the what if game today of, what if Nico Hoerner doesn't make that error? And that's something we really have not seen this season. I think it's 2 errors now in the postseason for Nico. Very uncharacteristic of him. What happens if he gets the out at first base and there's 2 outs in the inning with runners on second and third? What happens then? And while you can look at that moment and say that's the turning point of today's game, which we'll do now, the turning point of today's game, you can say it's the Nico Hoerner error. My argument against that is, what did Boyd show you in his very short appearance today that just because Nico gets, I believe, the second out of the inning, that we're going to see Boyd get out of it and then be good the rest of the game? And there is that argument to be made of maybe that out turns things for him. He gets more confidence in there. he goes back in, he settles down. Look at the first wild card game. He's got 2 runners on with no outs. 1 run gets in, and he's able to get out of that without allowing major damage. It's very similar to what the Cubs did in the second wild card game, where there's runners on, and they're able to avoid the major damage. They couldn't avoid it. Matthew Boyd was just terrible in this game. When's the next time we see him? That's a good question. I mean, what Craig Counsell is going to do after this is going to be fascinating. I think the easy decision here is to start Colin Ray in the next game, then to start, then to go bullpen Shota like you did, get guys back on track, back on rest, and then go Taillon, in the 4th game of the series, assuming you get there, which I think the Cubs will. I think I would still be confident in wagering that this thing goes 5 games. I don't think this is, the end-all be-all for this series. It's 1 game in a 5-game series, but it was just as bad of a start as you possibly could have. So I think Ray should go on Monday. I think that's the easy decision. I was listening to Matt and Sam's show. They just went live before me. Imanaga pushing him back to Wrigley where it's going to cool down a little bit is positive. This isn't a team that hits obviously a ton of home runs in the Milwaukee Brewers, so that should be advantageous. But they showed today, it doesn't really matter. They don't need the home run ball. And that's where these teams today, truly separate themselves of why the Cubs lost this game outside of just what happened with Boyd and Soroka. It's that the Cubs had 3 runs on 3 solo home runs. The Brewers were just moving guys, one guy after another. It's like that. It's like that GIF that we all use on Twitter where there's just guys coming across the plate constantly and there's a million guys on the field. That's what today felt like for the Brewers. They were just hitting doubles, singles. They were just moving guys over and over and over and over. And the Cubs right now are really relying on the deep ball. They're relying on the home run. That's all they pretty much have in their bag at this point besides striking out. Outside of the last game where they had 13 hits in the wild card series, the Cubs aren't hitting a ton. They're not getting guys on base. We haven't seen them have a single stolen base in the playoffs yet. And part of the reason was we saw in the Padres series, they had a good catcher back there. We saw PCA get thrown out at second base. But the Cubs can't steal bags if there's not guys on. The Cubs, for them to win this series, they have to get back to what they're good at. And that is walking, getting on base, and then using your weapon, which is your speed. From Nico to, I don't know if Tucker can run right now. I think he's looked fine running the bases, but I don't know if he could steal a bag for you right now. You got to start getting guys on and start moving them across and playing some semblance of small ball. And while the Cubs offense this year has largely, benefited from the home run ball, it can't be as extreme as it is right now. And if it's going to be, you got to get guys on base. I mean, what Bush has done so far at the leadoff spot, I think it's been great. He has 6 home runs since he took over the leadoff spot against righties for the Cubs. I'm fine with him there. I did like the lineup tweak that Craig Counsell made today. Frankly, I would like to see Ian Happ get moved down even a little bit lower behind Carson Kelly. But I look at this game and just say it was all bad. We'll try to find the positives. We'll get to your questions, your comments here in the chat. We'll talk more about what we saw from the lineup in this game. We'll talk about Kyle Tucker a little bit, what we're seeing from him. I'm not too surprised. I'll go over why. But we'll get to all of that next year on the Locked On Cubs postcast. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Every day we make decisions, but on PrizePicks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. Playing PrizePicks is such a fun, simple way to add more exciting to football. You just pick more or less on player projections like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley's rushing touchdowns for a game, and you are in the game. Super simple this week. Let's keep it nice and easy. Let's go to the running back position. Let's go more than a half a rushing or receiving touchdown for Jonathan Taylor, Jahmyr Gibbs, and James Cook this weekend. That's $20. Entry gets you a $55 payout if you go 3 for 3 there. So download the PrizePicks app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB and get $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup.
This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
All right, let's try to find some positives here in this game. There's one. I guess the home run ball, like the 3 home runs in this game, Michael Busch, that's a positive. The only other positive from this game, mentioned here in the chat as well, is the best part is the long innings for the Cubs bullpen. The fact that the way this game started, you're on your 3rd pitcher before the 2nd inning is over. The fact that you don't have to use your high leverage guys, that that you're able to get 4 1/3 from Savali, you're able to get some length from Ben Brown in this game. That is a positive. And just the fact that you didn't gas your bullpen, that, Craig Counsell said before the game, it was kind of a question mark of who was available, how much were they available because of how much your high leverage guys were used. But the fact that you got, 6 1/3 from 2 guys in your bullpen to end this game, that's the only really positive from this one. Again, besides the home run ball, that at least we saw those, but the strikeout numbers are still too high. And we're still waiting to see Kyle Tucker really, emerge in this one. For me, I'm not surprised by Kyle Tucker. While he's got a couple hits here in the postseason, Kyle Tucker isn't exactly known for postseason success. He has had 2 very different postseason careers. If you take out his first appearance in the postseason, his next 2 years in the postseason, he hit 306 and he hit 279. Those are great numbers, obviously. His last 3 years in the postseason, Kyle Tucker has hit 204, 150, and 0-0-0. There's only a 2-game series last year, but Kyle Tucker has not been good in the postseason the last 3 years. This was one of the things that I was aware of when the Cubs traded for him, that you don't want to set the world on fire and you hope it's some bad luck, but to see him not step up so far in the playoffs, to me, is not a surprise, because it's kind of the track record of what Kyle Tucker has done the last 3 postseasons when he was with the Houston Astros, is he was not good for them. He was not performing. He was not coming through with the big hits when you needed him to. And that's what we've seen so far too. And now, again, big hits, has there been opportunities for that for Kyle Tucker? Not really. He's had a couple nice, not everything's been a rollover to first base. So I think there are some signs to where he's not in a slump in the way that he's been. But this is a guy coming off the injured list that hasn't obviously had a lot of at-bats over the last, month of baseball. He's really barely been out there. And it does make sense to have him out there, because while I do, in theory, like this idea from Progressively Independent here on YouTube that they need Moises in the lineup, I'm just not sure where you put him, because I don't want to take Kyle Tucker out of the lineup. You're not taking Seiya Suzuki out of the lineup. So where does Moises Ballesteros play? He's caught 1 professional game, and that was game 162, right? So, we're not going to see him catch. Probably not going to see him catch much ever as a member of the Cubs, frankly. So the only real option would be, if Kyle Tucker can play in right field, is to put Tucker in right, Suzuki in left, and have Ballesteros DH. While I know we all want those things, this is the group. This is the lineup. The only thing I think we could see change is maybe Ian Happ moves down 1 more spot behind Carson Kelly. But this is the group that has to get it done. I would be stunned if we see a major lineup change at any point in the postseason, whether the Cubs postseason ends in 2 games or they go all the way, they go the distance. I don't think we're going to see this core group be flipped out of what it was. So they need to stop striking out. That's the biggest problem. Another game in which the Cubs have over 10 strikeouts in a game. It's brutal. And they faced a lot of good pitching, right? I don't want to take away anything from Peralta today or what the Padres did, but they've dominated the Cubs lineup for the most part. The Cubs have scored, I believe, 9 runs now in the postseason. That's the same amount of runs the Brewers scored today. The lineup just has not produced in the way that it needs to. So while, yes, Matthew Boyd pitching was not the right decision in my mind, and it is ultimately what cost you this game. Nico Hoerner's error did not help this game. If the Cubs are going to win this series, they're going to get this thing to a 5-game series, let's say, the lineup has to start producing. Now, the pitching matchups are a little bit easier, right? I think the Cubs, I heard Matt and Sam talking about this on their show, which you can check out as soon as you're done listening to me. They already went live. Or their audio's here already on Apple and Spotify. But I do think they can have an advantage in terms of their lineup, the Cubs lineup versus the Brewers pitching that's out there. They can take advantage of the guys that are out there, and that is a positive. But they're not showing, outside of really the one Yu Darvish inning, They're not really showing those signs collectively. So really the recipe for the Cubs right now is going to be your starting pitcher, whoever's out there on Monday, whether it's Colin Ray or it's Shota Imanaga, whoever is getting you through the 5th inning, handing it off to this bullpen and letting Palencia, Pomerantz, or Thielbar, Kittredge, and Keller take you home, and limiting the Brewers' runs because the lineup is not producing like we saw at the beginning of the Cubs season, which is not a surprise to anyone that's listening to the show or anyone that's watched Cubs baseball, because they haven't really produced like that in a very long time, besides a small stretch of baseball there at the very end of the season. So for the Cubs to win this series, for the Cubs to make this a series, they got to start putting up a couple runs just to give their starters some support. So it was a tough day at the ballpark for the Cubs. It was not pretty. Brewers are out there setting records, whether it's the team with how many runs they've scored, players with having, first player ever to have 3 hits in a postseason game in 2 innings. All the bad records that could be set, it felt like were set by the Milwaukee Brewers. So we'll be back with you guys on Monday night. Same plan the rest of the postseason. Matt and Sam will go live for 30 minutes. I will go live as soon as the game is over, now that the schedule is a little more favorable for me. So we will do that on Monday night. It'll be a late one for us, with 8:08 being the first pitch of the game. I wouldn't call it must win because it's technically not. And I'm a believer that a must-win game is only when you literally must win a game or your season is over. But I think if the Cubs have a real chance to win this series at all, you have to go back to Wrigley Field with a 1-1 split. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening. Wherever you get your podcast on Apple and Spotify, make sure you hit your subscribe button on those platforms and here on YouTube. We will talk to you late Monday night. Have a good one. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.